often than not, online dating is a chaotic cesspool of characters. I mean, sure, do some people find their happily ever after? Of course they do. But it's safe to say it's probably not the majority of encounters that go down. Well, with that in mind, welcome back, most amazing crew. I am your host, Kennedy, and today we are diving headfirst into some of the craziest things to happen on Tinder. That's right, today we're counting down the top 10 terrifying Tinder encounters that will make you want to be single. Starting us off at number 10 is love at first sight. This first story comes from Reddit user Joskillatrix, and from what it sounds like, their date was looking for something serious off the bat. Quote, "It was horrible. I installed the app for fun and just to F around with when I'm bored. Ended up matching with a girl and talked to her for like 2 weeks and exchanged numbers and Facebook info. She was pretty, seemed really cool, and we shared a lot in common. Eventually she said we should hang out and I said sure. We met up at a mall and just walked around and talked for about an hour and I left. After I left, I knew I wasn't gonna pursue her. Over text she seemed pretty cool, but in person she was just off. I don't know, can't really explain it. Anyway, within 2 minutes of getting back into the car, she texted me wanting to know my real opinion of her now. Kinda weird, but whatever, so I just replied saying, yeah, she's cool and whatever. Big mistake. Over the course of the next 2 hours, I received over 80 texts, about 10 calls, and a couple of voicemails, all of her crying and saying I need to move in with her and her dad. I needed to take care of her. I was blunt with her in saying no and this can't go on anymore and to stop contacting me, but nothing changed. I had to delete my Facebook, block her number, etc. I deleted the app after that. Yeah, I would probably do the same. Next up at number 9 is a Sunday dinner. I think it's fair to assume that most people inherently know that a first date is just between you and the person you're on a date with. The second thing I would say is fair to assume is that provided you are an adult and not still in high school, a first date should never involve your parents. Well, apparently that's not how everyone feels, as one story from a deleted Reddit account posted about the time they met their Tinder date's entire family in the most awkward way possible. Quote, "He invited me over to his house for dinner, completely leaving out the fact that he lived with his parents and that I was actually coming to a family Sunday roast with his parents and grandparents." Okay, full stop right there. I actually don't know what I would do if this was the first time I met someone was also meeting their entire family, especially when the family had no idea this was their first date. Yeah, that's right. Apparently the grandma went on to ask if her grandson was the one, and they were constantly being asked questions by the entire family all night. To top it off, after dinner, the date looked over and asked if they wanted to sleep the night. Needless to say, a Reddit friend declined and never spoke to them again. Coming in at number 8, Deja Vu. This next one comes from Reddit user TheRealJT and kinda gives me like crazy stupid love vibes. I mean, truly, it's just straight up bad luck. Quote, "A few years ago, I was dating this girl and her father really hated me, which was a bit odd as most parents love me, or at least lie about it really well. He was just a huge jerk and I always called him on his crap. Anyways, her parents got divorced, we broke up a few months later, etc, etc. Fast forward to around a year later, me and another girl from Tinder were dating for a few months and things are starting to get serious. We're at the point where she wants me to meet her family, mother, stepfather, little sister. Why not? I have no problems meeting them. She told me how excited her stepdad was to meet me, as it turns out that we both happen to be Kansas City Chief fans. Well, F me if it wasn't the same jerk father of my ex-girlfriend. I mean, honestly, what are the chances?" Coming in at number 7, Catfished. This story comes from a guy named John who wrote into a magazine to share his Tinder horror story. Quote, "I matched with this girl, checked her profile pics out, liked the look of her, and her bio was pretty sweet too, so I messaged her. They connected immediately, and over the next few days, they kept chatting and began opening up about their lives to each other. At this point, John was feeling really connected and kind of falling for this girl, but then things started to feel weird. Quote, "Every time I asked to meet up, she would always come up with an excuse. She wouldn't let me have her number, and she said she didn't have social media as she was taking a break from it. But then one day the girl uploaded a photo of a guy guy, and when John asked, "Oh, who's that?" she ignored him. After some pestering, the girl finally said it was an accident and she didn't mean to upload the photo and just to not worry about it. John was still thinking this was all super off, and so he decided to just leave the chat and go and meditate. Quote, "As I was meditating, I just felt this wave of energy telling me that the person I was talking to wasn't real. So I asked her if we could have a video call and she kept saying no. Quote, it just wasn't adding up. Then I took the photo and I ran it via Google image search and it came up with loads of pics of them. John was distraught to find out he'd been catfished, and when he asked them about it, they just denied it all and blocked him. Needless to say, John was actually super hurt. He had genuine feelings for her and was just totally shocked by the situation. I mean, top to bottom, that's just an awful encounter. Coming in at number 6, anger issues. This next one comes from a girl named Chloe who wrote into the Tab magazine about the worst date she'd ever been on. And yeah, I would definitely be afraid for my life if I was on a date with this man. Chloe starts off by saying she was home from university and her parents had just moved, so she didn't really know the area very well. Quote, this guy picked me up from my parents' house and drove me to this really remote and empty pub on the offskirts of town that I'd never been to, and I had no self-service. I didn't really know where I was. But then things got weirder as she went on to explain, quote, we were at this pub and he just kept buying me drinks even though he wasn't drinking because he was driving. He then proceeded to tell me about all his anger issues and told me a story about how he'd once set his teacher's foot on fire, and then a story about when he lost a game of golf, he threw all his golf clubs in a lake. After which he proceeded to go through photos on his phone showing me a collection of photos of him after fights with black eyes. I had to agree to a second date just to get him to drive me home because I literally didn't know where I was or how to get back and I had no signal. Not sure why he believed those were some good selling points on a first date, but yeah, as I said, Tinder is wild. Coming in at number 5, killer love. There are some things that you can get away with joking about, but killing people is a touchy one, I'd say. I mean, if you've been friends with someone for years and you make a clearly sarcastic joke to them, sure, that's one thing, but a brand new Tinder date is a totally different story. Well, speaking of such horror stories, a now deleted Reddit account posted saying, quote, I started seeing this girl from a dating app and things seemed to be going well, but she'd always make these jokes about how she wanted to kill me whenever I did something that annoyed her. Ordinarily, I wouldn't be bothered, but she kept doing it. Quote, oh my god, I'll kill you if you don't do it, or my mom makes me want to kill her sometimes. Then she told me she keeps a knife in her bedside table and has a shotgun in her room. I broke it off with her and she went mental, showing up at my work, at my house, banging on my windows at night. I don't really think the whole killing me thing was a joke anymore. Okay, but actually this is insane. Like, did this person contact authorities? I am stressed for their safety. I just hope that they are okay. Next up at number 4, a wedding disaster. Most friends that I know would be grateful for being told the truth, even if it hurt a little bit. But according to Reddit user Amim2001, their BFF did not take so kindly to their honesty bomb. They start off by explaining that their best friend's fiance showed up on their Tinder after their engagement party. Quote, I took a screenshot and asked my friend what she wanted me to do. She asked me to swipe right to see if he was still active. I did, and he messaged me asking to hook up. I told him off, he still wanted to hook up. I gave her all the screenshots. For most people, this would probably be enough to, I don't know, call off the wedding since your fiance is trying to hook up with your best friend and you have literal proof, but not for this bride. Reddit friend went on to explain that essentially, since she refused to sleep with him and also refused to pretend that it had never happened, she was uninvited from the wedding and the friendship ended. Apparently, he was only going to have a baby with her if he was a married man, and the bride wanted a baby so bad, she was willing to lose her best friend over it. And to make matters worse, the marriage only lasted 18 months. I mean, I actually can't believe that is how this whole situation went down. Coming in at number 3, the ex-girlfriend. This next story comes from an anonymous source who wrote into She Said magazine and could literally have been the plot of a movie. Quote, we were sitting on his balcony having drinks when all of a sudden there's a pounding on the door. I know it's probably super bad when he shrinks into his chair and doesn't make a move to answer it. Then we hear, I effing know you're home. Let me in, you piece of shit. Are you with her? I look at him, eyes wide, as he sheepishly explains that his ex is a bit unstable and refuses to believe they've broken up. But things don't stop there. They get even worse. After 5 minutes, the knocking stops. Less than a minute later, the shouting starts up again, except this time it's coming from the fence in front of us. Then she climbs over the fence, still screaming at him, climbs up the drain pipe and over onto the balcony. I sit there in silence as they have a full-on domestic. I go to leave and then he yells at me, telling me to sit down because the ex would be leaving immediately. Then he shouts at the ex for upsetting me. I ended up being stuck there for an hour because they were blocking the door, and unlike her, I didn't have balcony climbing skills. First of all, I'm very confused as to why he forced her to stay and watch them fight. That was a weird move. All I can say is I'm just glad that poor girl finally got out of there. Coming in at number 2, a stalker. There is a lot that could go wrong on a date, but I would venture to say that when you wake up restrained, it's a miracle you weren't on an episode of Dateline. And according to Redditor fully_cooley, they can't believe it happened to them either. Quote, I messaged this girl late one night and ended up going to her place around 6 a.m. She lived on the first floor of some dorms in a college across town. We got down to business immediately and fell asleep after. She seemed pretty cool, but here's where things get weird. Quote, I woke up naked with a tight elastic band around my ankles. Basically tied up at my ankles. She had hidden my clothes and insisted on spending the day together. But to make sure I didn't run away, she didn't tell me where my clothes were. So we're sitting around, I'm still naked after 3 hours. She's fully clothed now and asking me all about myself. To make things even stranger, she wrote down each of my answers to her questions. I waited until she left to use the bathroom, then I searched the entire dorm for my clothes. I found them in the refrigerator in the vegetable drawer. I got dressed so damn quick and jumped out of the window. I mean, thank God they got out of there before things really took a turn, cause that does not sound like a stable human being. And last up in our number 1 spot is Tinder Trauma. Buckle up for this wild ride from Reddit user Tommy Salami 40. It might actually make you never want to go on a date again. Quote, I was a sophomore in college and she was a junior or senior at the same school. The first time we ever hung out, I went over to her apartment and we just watched some Netflix and hung out. Nothing crazy. He then goes on to say that they started to really connect and kept texting throughout the week, organizing plans for the weekend. But then, quote, out of nowhere, she starts sending me unsolicited nudes. Never once had I asked for them, and when we were hanging out the weekend prior, there was no sexual activity at any level. We quite literally Netflixed and chilled. It caught me off guard, but I was more than cool with it. Then comes the weekend. He had been really looking forward to their date, especially since the spicy messages, and after a bit of TV, she asked if she could stay the night. Not wanting to presume, he offers to sleep on the couch, but she replies that she would like to sleep in the bed with him. At this point, he's feeling like he's gonna get lucky, and well, frankly, he does. But it's after that things start to get out of control. He explains that he tossed the used protection into his garbage can, as he usually does after the deed, but as they are laying down, she abruptly comes around to his side of the bed, grabs it, and runs to the bathroom. Quote, as I'm laying there in my bed, I hear a loud crash in my bathroom and I ask if she's okay. I get no response. I go to open the door and she's standing in my shower with one leg propped up trying to shove the condom inside of her after she flipped it inside out. I freak out. No clue what to do. I shut the door and she immediately comes back out, says she's going to leave, and I say, sounds good. I never hear from her again. Well, if that doesn't scare you off dating, I don't know what will. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked today's video. If you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you next time.